China's social stability was built on a very strict family hierarchy. Husbands and wives, parents and children, older brothers and younger siblings all knew their place. If a father told a son he should study engineering, well, the son was simply expected to comply. There was no room for family rebellion. In the West, where we value individualism, this seems wrong, but China was, until its collapse a little over 100 years ago, the longest continuous form of government in human history. Dynasties changed, but imperial government lasted from the Qin dynasty in 221 BCE all the way to 1912. Confucius was right. The conservative approach to family values bred stability. It also, however, resulted in an essentially conservative intellectual world, especially over the last 500 years, and there was little advancement in human rights, even as serfdom and slavery fell away in the West and women here obtained the right to vote. Now, life in 21st century America is rather different. No one form of family fits everyone. Some families have 2 parents and a number of children. Other families have a parent and a step-parent and a number of children, or a parent and children, or a parent and a grandparent and children, or 2 grandparents and children, or 2 parents and an adopted child, or, well, you get the idea. This is not some recent change. I've been doing family history now for decades. Yep, I'm that old. And along the way, I realize how varied the different families have been. A woman with her sister raising her children in 1880s New York. A woman raising her child along with her husband, but the child is actually her father-in-law's, and he lives with them too. And everybody knew, so yes, the tension in that house was thick. So just as I like to do with every topic, we should begin this one with a definition. What is family? These are a couple of definitions from Merriam-Webster. The Oxford Dictionary defines it as a household with 2 parents with children, or people connected by DNA. Personally, I find that latter one offensive. My father died last year, and I'm still grieving. He had his faults and his foibles, but he was my hero. He loved me like no one else has ever loved me in this world. And he shaped and crafted the very best parts of me. He held on to me when I was a terrible person. And over the last 3 years of his life, we spent hundreds of hours over coffee and pie in the morning, and beer and baseball in the afternoon, and searching out the very best catfish in town. But he wasn't my DNA. He met and married my mom when I was 3 years old, and he took me as his very own. According to that second Oxford Dictionary definition, we weren't family. But they're simply wrong. Are adopted children ever a part of a family? When 2 single parents join their broods together, do they become one family? Even that first definition is a challenge. Did we cease being a family when the kids moved out of the house, or when my mom died? Is it a family if a couple never has children? Is it a family if a young woman has a baby but never lives with the baby daddy? Can a family have 3 parents? A recent news article was about an embryo that blended 3 strands of DNA together. And so on and so on. All of this leads to the question of the enduring nature of family. In nearly every family, there's somebody who's just walked away. Oftentimes, the reason they give for doing so is pretty shaky. Sometimes they don't even bother to give a reason. I got a nephew like that. And the rest of the family wants to assert that family ties aren't negotiable. You can't just walk away from the family because you got a bug up your bum. What do you think? A woman who spent her childhood years being raped by her father has an obligation to invite him over for Thanksgiving dinner? That makes me uncomfortable. An adult kid who's a meth addict, abusive, thieving, manipulative, should be welcomed into the house every time he shows up at the door? On the other hand, should a kid cut off his parents forever because they insisted that he stop leaving dirty dishes around for other people to clean up? Or because her mother doesn't like the boy she's dating? Or because his father is a Republican? I've known situations like all three of these. We need some values. And in the society we live in, that means biblical values, right? One of the commandments in the Hebrew Bible, aka the Old Testament, is honor your father and your mother. Now we'll get into what honor might mean in a minute, but first a word about commandments or laws in our own society. God did not command people to eat. They already do that. And God did not command people not to poop in their cooking pots, because no one would do that. Commandments and laws are given when there's a problem to be addressed. So, telling people to honor their parents is a pretty sure sign that there was a substantial number of people who were not honoring their parents. The same reasoning can be applied to the commandment, you shall not have sex with farm animals, but that's a different topic. As to what honor means, well, it doesn't mean sending your mom a Mother's Day card or telling your dad he's the best dad ever. The word in Hebrew, to honor, comes from the word to make heavy. It's about weighing your parents down with enough wealth that they're taken care of in their old age. And not just through the last years of their lives, but through their burial when they die as well. And beyond this, well, family values in the Hebrew Bible are a little vague. Kids who tell their parents such things as go to hell are to be stoned to death. Blended families are the norm, since dad can marry as many wives as he wants and sleep with other women too, as long as they're widows or divorcees. In the Hebrew Bible, people sleep with their servant girls. They hand their daughters over to be raped. In one case, he even sacrificed his own daughter because he made a rash vow. Brothers betray brothers. Sons start revolutions. It's ugly. You probably want a nicer picture. So let's read the New Testament instead. Besides, people in our country, when they say family values, they mean Christian family values. But when we look at Christianity's scripture, the New Testament, we may be a little shocked. It doesn't say quite what we think it does. Unless you hate your mother and your father, you cannot follow me. This is not some random thought. Jesus said that. I know people want to fix it and say something like, well, what he meant to say was, but we are kind of stuck with what he did say, and looking around the rest of the Gospels, it doesn't look like he valued family so much. His mom came to see him. Actually, it says she came to seize him because he was out of his mind. And Jesus was inside the little house, and someone came to him and said, your mom and your brothers are outside. And Jesus looked around the room and said, who's my mom? Who are my brothers? You are my family. She could hear him, you know. She was only 15 feet away. And then there was that time at the wedding at Cana. They ran out of wine, so Mary went to Jesus and said, they're out of wine. And Jesus' response was, woman? Yeah, woman? That's not very honor your mother-like. Of course, people say, well, in those days, that was a term of affection. And I say, where'd you get that? And they say, well, because Jesus said it, and Jesus loved his mother. Sorry, circular argument. Anyway, he says, woman, what of yours has anything to do with me? Ouch. Harsh. In the end, he says, he came to bring division to families, not peace. He tells one guy whose dad just died, walk away. Let the dead bury the dead. You know that Jesus never got married? So Christian family values can't include that either. Some people say that he and Mary Magdalene were a thing. It kind of makes sense to me, but that sure isn't Christian family values. This is hard.